So good afternoon, everyone. My name is Meghan Felt, and I'm an immigration lawyer located in Canada. Today, I'm going to be speaking on the express entry and PNP application streams. So I'm going to discuss actually the PNP stream and the express entry stream separately. And then I'm also going to discuss the combined express entry PNP stream because that's a very beneficial stream for most people. So what I'll do first is speak a little bit about the PNP streams generally. PNP stands for Provincial Nominee Program. And basically, every different province and territory in Canada has their own unique provincial nominee programs. The federal government, even though immigration is federal, the federal government have basically given each different province and territory their ability to create their own unique streams to satisfy the requirements and desires or needs of that particular province. The PNP streams generally, I will not be able to go over every single different stream for every different province here today because that would take me far too long. But what I will discuss is about them generally. Generally speaking, you need to have a job offer from an employer in that particular province if you wish to apply under one of those streams. The processing time for provincial nominee programs is relatively long, and this is why these programs are not always the best option for people who are trying to get their permanent residency quickly. The way that the program works is essentially in two different stages. So step number one, if you have your job offer from an employer in that particular province, then you can apply to the provincial nominee program in the province in which you have a job offer, whether you're in that province currently working or whether you just have a job offer for that province. So you apply to that province, their Office of Immigration, for a nomination letter. The timeline to get a nomination letter varies by province, but generally ranges from about 30 days to 1 month to 3 or 4 months, depending on the province. Once you have your nomination letter, you do two things. You can apply for your work permit, and then concurrently at the same time, you file an application for your permanent residency. Your work permit application, the timeline to get your work permit will be dependent on where you are. If you are in Canada, then if you're in Canada and already on a study or work permit, then the processing time is approximately 100 plus days. If you are outside of Canada, then the processing time will depend on the country in which you are currently residing or in which you have a nationality for. The processing time really varies by country to country, but you're looking at anywhere from about 2 or 3 weeks to 3 or 4 months, depending on the country in which you live. Now, once you have your nomination letter, you also can file your permanent residency application. The processing time for your permanent residency application, once you have your nomination letter, is upwards of 24 months. So that's about 2 years to get your permanent residency once you have your nomination letter. This is not this is a fairly long timeline, and is one of the reasons why people often choose maybe not to go the PNP route because the processing times are so long. So what I wanted to do a little bit now was to switch gears and speak a little bit about the federal express entry program and how you may be able to actually use a nomination from a province to benefit you under that program. So the federal express entry program is a really great federal program. It's a federal program that is available in every different province. So it's not a provincial nominee program, it's a federal program. This program, this application does not necessarily require that you have a job offer, although you can get extra points if you do. So the way that this program works essentially is that as long as you meet some baseline requirements, which I'll discuss in a little bit, then what you can do is you can submit a profile online. And I can help you with this, of course, but once we submit the profile online, the system will basically automatically generate a point score for you. So your point score will be based on various things, okay, including your age, which is important, your language abilities, so your ability to speak in either English or French, It'll depend on your level of education and the amount of work experience you have. They will also take into consideration your spouse's work experience, so your spouse's Canadian work experience, education, and language abilities as well. So if you have Canadian work experience, or your spouse has Canadian work experience, you can get extra points. So basically, what happens is if you are, if you're able to submit a profile, then you submit a profile through the Canadian government website, and you're generated a point score. Well, then every 2 weeks or so, the Canadian government, they dip into this pool of candidates, and they pick the people with the highest scores, and they issue them invites for permanent residency. So if your score is high enough to receive an invite under this program, then you have 60 days to submit your documents. And then 6 months after submission of your documents, 6 months later, you and your family have permanent residency in Canada. So this is a really great program for people who qualify. But your permanent residency, you get it in as little as 8 or 9 months, as opposed to 2+ years. So it's a much better program compared to the PNP if you qualify. So what are the eligibility requirements? Well, one is that you have at least some work experience in a high-skilled position. So this is a NOC A, O, or B position. So if you have a skill set in a NOC C or D position, or work experience in a NOC C or D position, you do not qualify for this program. So it has to be basically high-skilled. Only high-skilled individuals will qualify, people with high-skilled work experience. You have to have at least 1 year of work experience. It does not need to be in Canada, but you do get extra points for having Canadian work experience. You also have to have completed English tests, English or French tests. I recommend that you and your spouse both complete English tests, and that you do as well as you possibly can, because you get points for every different discipline: speaking, writing, reading comprehension, all the different disciplines, you get extra points. So it's important to do to score as high as you can, both you and your spouse, because it could literally mean the difference of, getting a 7 or a 7.5 could really mean the difference of hundreds of points in some cases when you combine all, both you and your spouse's scores together. So it can really make a difference as to whether you get an invite or not. You also get extra points if you have a labor market impact assessment. And or Canadian work experience, so you're already working for 1 year. You also can possibly get an extra 600 points under this program if you have a job offer in one of the provinces and apply to that particular province for a nomination. Now, this is a different stream than the regular PNP program I spoke about a little bit earlier. This is an entirely different PNP stream. So the way that it would work is you'd have to submit your profile. You'd have to submit your profile first. Once you're selected into the pool, then as long as you have a job offer in one of the provinces, you can apply via the express entry stream under under that particular province's PNP program. And if they like you and they select you, then you will get automatically an extra 600 points into your profile, which will basically guarantee you an invite the following round of invites. The threshold to get an invite right now, changes every couple of weeks, but it hovers anywhere between 430 and 475. So I always recommend, if you have a score of at least 420 in a profile, you may get an invite right away. You may not ever. Your profile expires after a year, but at least it's worth putting in a profile to see whether you have you get an invite. And if you have that job offer from a provincial, from an employer, well, then you can apply to get extra points. Hugely beneficial. So it's a much faster way to permanent residency rather than the regular PNP stream. Now, every different province has their different requirements and their different processes. Some of them require that you submit an expression of interest first. Some of them don't. So it's very, important that, once you have your job offer, that we review the particular program requirements for that province's PNP program. And if express entry is a viable option, then this is the best option. Then this may be the best option for you. if you don't have a high enough skill set, or your job offer is not for a high skilled job, or for whatever reason that this particular program is closed for that province, then maybe the regular PNP stream is the best option for you. So it will really be case specific dependent, and it will depend on the particulars of the province at the time that you apply, because things are always changing. It's always a moving target. So I did want to mention this though, because if it's available as an available option, it is a better one because it gets you your permanent residency faster. There are basically, underneath Express Entry, there are basically 3 different streams. Now you don't have to pick which one you apply for. When you submit your profile, the system will automatically slot you into the appropriate stream. Most people fall under either the Canadian experience class, which requires that you have 1 year Canadian work experience, or the federal skilled worker class, which doesn't require that you have Canadian work experience. It only requires that you have at least 1 year of foreign work experience. So in order to even be able to submit one of these profiles online, you and your spouse should both have your English test completed, both of you, and you should both also have your education credential assessments completed. You will not be able to even submit a profile until you have both of these things completed. And your spouse, having completed these, will give you additional points. So it's a good idea to have as a first step, to have both of those things completed for both of you, and then submit a profile, to see what your point score will be. And then if you have sometimes you can actually get an invite without a job offer, but you have to have a really good combination of points criteria in order for that to work. So, for example, if you are 45 years old with a bachelor's degree, and maybe 10 or 15 years of work experience, and then okay English, so CLB 5, CLB 6 or 7. Well, then you're most likely not going to have a point score high enough to be able to get an invite without a job offer, because your age is going to really bring down your point score, as well as your English test scores. But if you're, maybe 30 years old with a master's degree, and you have, 7.5s and 8s in English, then you may have a score high enough to warrant an invite under this program without even needing a job offer. It will really be dependent on your unique circumstances and your point score assessment based on, like I said, your unique circumstances. And also it will depend on, the Canadian government and their draws a particular week or month to see whether they dip low, that maybe you'll be a good candidate for an invitation to apply. So the younger and more you are, and of course, the better your English, then the your chances are of getting an invite under this program without needing a job offer. But if your score isn't quite high enough, then the job offer will be very beneficial, because you can apply to the province that you are, in which you're being offered the job, and submit an application to that provincial nominee program under the Express Entry stream, and get an extra 600 points under that program to boost your point score up high enough to be eligible for a work permit, to be eligible for permanent residency, or be eligible for an invite to apply for permanent residency under that program. So that's pretty much everything I wanted to mention to you about the Express Entry program here today. If you have any questions, I'm happy to answer them, and have a great day. So not necessarily, no. So like I said, every different province has their own unique streams. Most provinces have 2 basic streams. One is the skilled worker stream, which requires that you have at least a high school or university of some kind, but that does not require that you have Canadian education. But they also, a second basic stream that most of the provincial nominee programs have is called an international graduate stream. So whereby anybody who has gone to school in that province and has a job offer in that province as well, then they can apply under that stream. So there are basically more options available to people who have Canadian education. It also, under Express Entry, increases their point score. So having a Canadian education is hugely beneficial, but it's not an absolute requirement. If you don't have a Canadian education, you just need to make sure that you have an education credential assessment, an ECA done, so that you can apply, because otherwise you may be eligible under the PNP to apply without an ECA, but you won't be eligible to apply under express entry without an ECA. Every different province has their own different programs and streams under PNP. So it's hard to say that generally. I know that some provinces have what we call a points grid, where you have to basically have to meet a certain point score, similar to express entry, but you have to meet a certain point score in order to be eligible under that particular PNP stream for that particular province. But every province is different, and not all provinces require that. So there is a point score under express entry, where the point score, basically the threshold to receive an invite changes every 2 weeks. So it could be 425 1 week, it could be 450, 2 weeks later, 475, 480, 2 weeks after that. It bounces around. So, the point score has kind of been going, it's been kind of on a downward trend a little bit right now, which is good, it's beneficial, but there's no way to predict exactly what the point score will be in the coming weeks or months or years, because it will really depend on how many immigrants Canada wants to let in, which seems to be that they have commitments to bring in more. So that's good. That's good news. But it also will depend on the types of candidates that are applying under this program. So the more that people around the world are learning about this and understanding and thinking and learning that, hey, if I speak really good English or French, and I'm really young and have good education, maybe I don't need a job offer and I can get permanent residency in Canada. Well, if you get a lot more people that are applying who are good candidates, that will drive the point score up, right? Because there's more people in the pool who have a good combination of experience and qualifications that Canada wants, and then that could drive the point score up. So it's really hard to predict exactly where it's going to be, but it's been pretty, it's been pretty, I guess, stagnant, around, the 430 to 475 mark. So if you have a point score of around 430 or 445, it's absolutely worth submitting a profile. You may very well get an invite within a few months. And if you have a score of 470 or higher, then you're almost sure to get an invite. At least that's the way things are going now. Really, the best thing to do is to find a job, and then once you have a job, then depending on the province is in, whatever province it's in, then what we do is we look at the job, we look at your skill set, your resume, and then we decide on the best stream forward based on your particular skill set, and then the criteria for the programs for the province in which you're in. And if we can make express entry work, then we will. And if not, then the PNP would be a second option, because it takes longer to get your permanent residency under the PNP general streams. So if we can use express entry, we will. And if not, we will use the PNP. Generally speaking, programs do tend to fill up faster in the larger provinces. So that is a disadvantage. That's not to say that that it's not possible to get in there. It just generally, depending on the time of year that you apply and whether they met the quotas for the exact that particular year. I mean, there's so many variables. So that's why whenever you get your job offer, then what we do is we evaluate and we look at the province, we look at the different streams, and we make a decision, and then we do that at that particular time, instead of trying to say, oh, well, anybody that gets a job offer in BC can go into the stream. It's more convoluted than that. But for the Atlantic provinces, for example, I know that there's the AIPP program, as I spoke about in one of my previous sessions, and the language requirement, for example, for the AIPP is lower. It's a CLB4, whereas generally CLB5 is required for other PNP programs. They accept, for example, NOC C positions. And they, whereas express entry only accepts high school positions, not A, O, or B. And the EIPP program offers the ability to be able to get your permanent residency in as little as about 6 months once you submit the federal portion. So that's a huge advantage as well to try to attract immigrants to Atlantic Canada. So there are kind of things like that in place that make it more beneficial maybe to get a job offer and apply in Atlantic Canada. But remember, these are just generalizations. I look forward to being able to do this again next week.
Okay, cool. Thank you, Megan.
You're welcome. Thank you. Bye.
Bye-bye.